Good morning, Chilin Sairam. Chilin, today I'm going to start the next chapter of our book, Indian Economic Development, that is chapter number 5th, and the name of our chapter is India's Foreign Trade. Chilin, this is the first video of this chapter, and in this video, we are going to learn what is international or foreign trade. Thereafter, we are going to learn India's foreign trade at the time of independence, India's foreign trade after independence, and at last, we are going to learn the inward looking trade strategy, that is, import substitution strategy. So, children, let us start with the first topic, that is the introduction of international or a foreign trade. Children, foreign trade is exchange of capital, goods and services across international borders or territories. So in most countries it represents a significant share of gross domestic product, that is GDP. Generally, no country is self sufficient, as we all know. It has to be depend upon some other countries for importing the goods which are either non available with it or are available in insufficient quantities. Similarly, it can export goods which are in excess quantity with it and are in high demand outside. So foreign trade involves different currencies of different countries and is regulated by the laws, rules and regulation of the concerned countries. Now we are looking out to the foreign trade of India. Chilean, as we all know, foreign trade in India includes all imports and exports to and from India. So, at the level of the central government, it is administered by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And prior to 1991, the economic liberalization, India was a closed economy due to the average tariff exceeding 200% and the extensive quantitative restrictions on imports. So, foreign investment was strictly restricted to only allow Indian ownership of business. And since then, the liberalization or the India's economy has improved mainly due to the increased foreign trade. Children, in the last chapter, we have learned that there are threefold classification of industry. The first one is the schedule one in 17 industries are being regulated by the government. Thereafter, we have 12 industries which is further been you can say administrated by the public state as well as the private enterprise. Now in the next one we have an industrial licensing. So in industrial licensing, children, we have learned that the industries is basically as a private sector, and the basic idea of licensing policy was to encourage the industry in the backward regions of a country, and this is being done just to promote the regional equality. So a license was needed not only for establishing a new enterprise but also for expanding the production capacity of an existing ones. So in that topics we have learned that if we want to import, I mean, the condition of foreign trade was very worst in the ancient times, as we want to if we wanted to import something from the foreign countries, or if we wanted to export something too, then we have to need a license for doing this. So it is been up to a desired level been approved, and if we want to import more, then we need to take prior permission from the government. So this is called a basic restrictions which is imposed on doing international foreign trade. Now, since the new economic policies was introduced in the year 1991, now this kind of quotas been replaced by you can say the privatization. This kind of licensing will be removed, I mean, been abolished by the liberalization, and the idea of this foreign investors will be removed by the globalization. So in this chapter, basically we are going to learn the condition of India's foreign trade and how is the India's foreign trade been improved since the India got an independence. So, children, let us learn again the condition of India's foreign trade during the British rule. Children, as we all know that India has been an important trading nation since ancient times. However, the restrictive policy has been adopted by the colonial government, that is the British rule in India, adversely affect the structure, the composition and the volume of India's foreign trade. And the state of India's foreign trade during the British rule is discussed as follows. The first one is net exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods. Second is monopoly control of India's foreign trade, and the third one is surplus trade, but only to on the benefit of Britishers. Now, children, as I just said, India was very well known for their trading nation since the ancient times, but India was also a well known exporter of finished goods such as fine cotton, silk, textiles, iron goods, wooden goods, ivory work, and precious stones. But the British converted India into a net exporter of raw material and importer of this finished goods. So it was all due to the discriminated tariff policy of the trade and the tariffs which has been pursued by the British government. So the state of India's foreign trade is being explained in this following points. The first one is net exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods. Children, owing to the colonial exploitation of the Indians economy, India became mostly the exporter of raw material and primary products like raw silk, cotton, wool, jute, indigo, sugar, etc. And on the other hand, it became net importer of finished goods, which is produced by the British industry. So our imports include cotton, silk, and woolen cloths, besides several type of capital goods which is produced in England. So all this kind of composition of export and imports reflected utter backwardness of the Indian economy. So this is the first colonial exploitation done by the Britishers. Now, the second one is monopoly control of India's foreign trade. Children, British government maintained a monopoly control over India's export and imports. More than half of India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain, while the rest was allowed with a few other countries like China, Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka, and Persia, that is Iran. So, in this, the opening of Suez Canal in 1869 served a direct route for the ship operating between India and Britain. For making this monopoly control of British very easily, the Britishers have introduced a Suez Canal in 1869, which is a very direct route for the ship in between India and Britain. So, as I just said, over 50% of India's foreign trade was directly towards the Britain, and the rest are with this related countries. So, while export of primary products like raw material from India, it supplies inputs to the British industries, and after that, this raw material is being converted into the finished goods in the British textiles in England, and again it is imported in, and again this kind of finished goods imported from Britain to India, which provides a very huge market for the British industry. Now, the third one is surplus trade, but owing to decline, the benefits of Britishers. So, children, uh, under the British rule, India became an exporter of primary goods and importer of finished goods. So, it implied a surplus of balance of trade, which majorly points out these things. First, children, the surplus was owing largely to the export of primary goods, which is a sign of economic backwardness. The trade surplus was not used for growth and development of the country. Instead, it was used to meet. And children, the trade surplus is not related with the growth and the development of India, but it was just to meet the administrative expenses of the British government in India and the expenses of war which is fought by the British government. So administrative and the war expenses led to a huge drain of wealth from India. It compounded the backwardness of the Indian economy. So, children, as I just said, during the British rule, the India became an exporter of the primary products and an importer of the finished goods. There were a huge export surplus due to the excess exports, and this excess surplus amount was used to make payment for the expenses which is incurred by an office which is set up by the colonial government in Britain. Second, to meet expenses on war which is fought by the British government, and to import the invisible items. So this is the colonial exploitation of Britishers during the British rule. And children, one more thing I want to explain, that the Suez Canal is an artificial waterway running from north to south across the Isthmus of Suez in northeastern Egypt. So the opening of Suez Canal in 1869 reduces the cost of transportation and made access to the Indian market easier. So this canal provide a direct trade route for ships operating between India and Britain, and avoid the need to sail across Africa. And strategically and economically, it is one of the most important waterways in the world. Next, we are going to learn India's foreign trade after independence. Children, after independence, and the government has initiated many 5-year plans for the growth and the development of our country's economy. And under the planned programs of development, India's foreign trade recorded notable changes. The following descriptions offers a brief account of changes with respect to volume, the composition, and the direction of India's trade. And for understanding it better, let us learn the volume of the foreign trade. I mean, what is the condition of our country's foreign trade from time to time, or from from basic plants to plants. So, children, here we are talking about the volume of India's foreign trade during the different plan periods. In the first 5-year plans, which is started between 1951 to 56, our import is 3,651 crores, whereas export is 3,109 crores. So, total international trade in the year 1950 to 51 is 6,760 crores. Now for the current 5-year plans, which is the 12th 5-year plan in between 2012 to 17, our export is our import is 1 crore 31 lakhs 89,647 crores, whereas our export is 90 lakhs 1,484. If we're talking about the total foreign trade, that is 2 crores 21 lakh 91,132 crores. So this table shows the volume of India's foreign trade has increased considerably under the 5-year plans. It has risen from 6,760 in first 5-year plans to 2 crores 21 lakhs 91,132 crores in the 12th 5-year plans, which shows a rise of 3,282 times. And during this period, while import increased by 3,612 times and export rises by 2,895 times. So this is basically the volume of our India's foreign trade during the after the country's independence. Next, we are talking about the composition of foreign trade. Children, what is composition of foreign trade? Children, composition of foreign trade means the major commodity or the sectors in which the India is doing export or import. India is a very old participants in the world trade, as we all know. Its participation has been promoted by the opening of the Suez Canal and speedy development in the ship building industry, supplemented by the spread of industrial revolution in Europe and fast expansion of Indian railways. So, children, this composition of trade refers to the item of export and imports. And after the independence, there has been a substantial change in the composition of India's foreign trade, and this can be highlighted from this following points. The first one is decline in percentage share of agricultural products. Children, there has been a significant decline in the percentage share of agriculture items in total exports. It happens owing to the fact that now India has started using the farm products as raw material for a domestic industry. I mean, previously, whatever the farm products we have, we are going to export it into the foreign countries now. The same we are using only for the production of our domestic industries. So this shows a decline in the agricultural exports. Now, the second is that a substantial rise in India's population has raised the domestic consumption of farm products. Now, just because of the growing population, we need the farm products just to fulfill the basic amenities of people, or to fulfill the basic needs of the peoples living in a country. Therefore, we have observed that there is a decline in India's foreign trade in terms of exports. Next is declining the percentage share of the conventional items. Conventional items of India exports include the jute, tea, food grains, and minerals. And you have observed that the bulk of India's export at the time of independence constituted, but with the planned development programs in place, the domestic demand for the conventional item has tended to rise. I mean, this share in the total exports has tended to fail. Next is increase in percentage share of manufacturing goods. Children, percentage share of manufacturing goods in total exports has tended to rise. And presently, the gems and precious metals, machineries and vehicles are of notable exports of India. This points to the fact that planned development programs have started yielding results. So, it is showing a significant sign of structural transformation from the predominance of the primary sector to that of secondary and the tertiary sectors. And this changes in the composition of India's foreign trade suggests that India is no longer a strategic or a backward economy. Now we are going to learn the next topic, 1991, which is known as a great year of divide. Children, the study of the behavior of India's foreign trade, which brings out a significant, you can say the point that the volume of trade has tended to gain the momentum after 1991. So this we can support it with this can be understand with this following points. The first one says that till 1991, children, we are relying on a different trade strategy. we have been adopted different trade strategy just to increase our foreign trade. And the second is we are relying on inward looking trade strategy which failed to yield the desired results. So basically we are involved we are doing, and we are obviously taking a substitution of imports because we are importing more than what we are exporting. So it shows that we are basically dependent on the other foreign countries just to fulfill a consumption need of people. So that is why it, it was only in the 1991 that we shifted to the strategy of export promotion, which triggered a rise in exports and imports. So for doing this, we have introduced a inward looking trade strategy, which is basically an import substitution strategy. So children, in inward looking trade strategy, it refers to the policy of reliance on import substitution and protection to the domestic industries through import restrictions and import duties in the area of international trade. And this following points support some basic informations about this inward looking trade strategy. Now the first says that children, import substitution implies the domestic production of those goods which the economy has been importing from the rest of the world. I mean, with this introducing of this import substitution policies, now India start producing those goods and services which he is importing from the rest of the world. So this is a strategy to save the foreign exchange, because if you are importing anything from any foreign countries, then that country then that country has to be make a payment in their own currencies. So with this introduction of inward looking trade strategy, this objective is to save the foreign exchange by restricting the volume of imports. Second is foreign exchange was to be utilized for the development imports, referring to the import of plant and machinery, which is basically essential for the growth and development but cannot be produced domestically owing to the lack of technology or the lack of investment funds. I mean, we are importing not the various crops, the various consumable goods which is needed for the consumption, which is needed to fulfill the consumption need of our people, but we are going to import the fixed assets. We are going to import the fixed assets just to increase our productivity, and just to increase efficiency, which we cannot be produced in our country domestically, or due to the lacking of funds we are not producing the plant and machinery or the some kind of capital goods. So children, previously what we as we used to import the various goods and services, now we are importing the capital goods from the foreign countries just to increase the productivity. Next is children, by adopting this inward trade looking strategy, the government prefer to economize the use of the foreign exchange rather than the maximize the generation of the foreign exchange. I mean, with this adoption of inward looking trade policy, we are used to save the foreign exchange by not importing the various goods and services from the foreign countries, and we are going to produce those goods and services domestically in our country, and then we are exporting into the foreign countries just to maximize the generation of the foreign exchange, or just to increase the foreign currencies reserve. So the government wanted to protect basically the domestic industries from the international competition. This was the basic funda behind this inward looking trade strategy. Next topic, we are going to learn the impact of inward looking trade strategy on the domestic industry. So, children, since the India has initiated this inward-looking trade strategy, it had both the good as well as the bad impact on the industrial health of the economy, which we are going to understand from the following few points. Now, first, we are going to learn the good impact. So, some of the good impact of initiating this inward-looking trade strategy are as follows. The first one is high rate of industrial growth with structural transformation. Children, let us learn first what is the structural transformation. Children, structural transformation occurs when there is a rise in the percentage share of secondary and the tertiary goods in GDP and the corresponding fall in the percentage share of primary sectors. I mean, when we increase the contribution, the percentage contribution the second in the territory sector in the country's GDP, and a substantial rise in the corresponding, you can say, the percentage share of the primary sector, that is agriculture sectors, then this is called as a structural transformation. So with you can say the green revolution, the percentage contribution of the industrial sector to GDP increases from nearly 12% in the 1951 to nearly 25% in 1991. So with substantial rise share of industrial sectors in GDP, it is a sign of economic growth which is based on the structural transformation in the economy. Now, the second one is diversification of industrial growth. Children, the period in between 1950 to 1990 saw the diversification of industrial growth as it is indicated with the following observation. The first says that the modern industry was no longer confined to textile and jute, and just because of this inward looking trade strategy, the industrial growth started spreading across engineering goods and the wide range of consumable goods. So, with this substantial increase in the industrial industries, children, we are observing that there is a better increase in engineering goods as well as the consumable durable goods from from the year 1951. So in between of the era 1950 to 90, we have observed that now India is producing in all kinds of engineering consumable non-consumable goods which is needed for the economic growth of a country. And India is it is also widely recognized that the roots in the domestic economy had the policy of protection which has not been pursued. Children, in electronic industry, in the automobile industries, we have observed that there is a good increase in this kind of industries, and it is exposed to international competition that this industry would have failed later onwards to survive. Next is opportunity of investment. Children, with the production of the small scale industries, it is opened a new opportunity of investment for those who did not have much capital. So it also implies the use of latent resources in the country which otherwise would have remained idle. So no new investment opportunities implied the new opportunities of the self-employment, which is basically promoted the equality growth with the equality. Now, this all are the good impact of the inward looking strategy. Now we are looking on to the bad impact of the inward looking trade strategy. So, children, following observation highlights a bad impact of inward looking trade policy or on domestic industry. The first one is growth of inefficient public monopolies. So, children, with the production of the public sector industry led to the growth of inefficient monopolies. The telecommunication, which was previously a government monopoly till about 1990, As we all know, now now it is restricted from the direct monopoly control of the government. Previously, when we have to take any telephonic connections, then we need to the people has to wait for a long time, and thereafter they can get telephonic connections. But now it is becomes very easy to take any telephonic connections, and you will get repeatedly SMS offerings you a new telephonic connections which is free of charge. So with the advancement of the new technologies, you observe that this inward looking trade strategy, which is previously restricted to some of the industries, has been abolished. Now the second is the lack of competitions implied lack of modernization. Children, if we have a lack of competitions, then you can observe that we are obviously having a lack of modernizations. So if we do not have any competitions, then we do not have any challenging niche we can find in the industries. Because if there are less industries, and this less industries, if they are not adopting any kind of modernization, and there is no challenges in between of them, then they used to take a proper hold in the market, and they will capture the entire market. So let's take one example, children. If suppose the all users of cars, as we all know, in the previous eras, we have the ambassadors and the few Fiat cars, which were the only two models which is basically produced in the domestic industry in our country. And children, and no doubt that this domestic car industries has flourished a near monopoly owing to the policy of protections. But consequently, the Fiat and the ambassadors cars continue to be the honest pride as long as the policy of protections was pursued. But thereafter, with the protection after the policy of protection was withdrawn, people rejected these cars as a good references. The next one is indiscriminate spread of public sector enterprise. So, children, the period. The next we have indiscriminate spread of public sector enterprise. So, children, in between the period 1950 to 1980, it was marked with a trend to do anything with everything through the public sector undertakings, and so much that the public sector undertakings in this bid to play a role of crusader. So, one can appreciate commanding heights of the economy to be the public sector undertakings. So, children, in this indiscriminate spread of public sector enterprises in producing such goods as bread and shoes, which could easily be left to the public sector enterprises, which implies that indiscriminate and irrational use of public resources and swelling of opportunities of investment from the private enterprises. So this all are the bad impact of inward looking trade strategies. So children, so far what we have understood that what is the international foreign trade, what is the condition of India's foreign trade at the time of independence, thereafter the condition of India's foreign trade after independence, the inward looking trade strategy, which is known as the import substitution strategy policy. We do have learned the good as well as the bad impact of these policies. And now, children, uh, in the next video, we are going to learn the new economic policies in where this licensing is being replaced by the liberalization. This kind of quota has been replaced by the privatization, and basically the all restrictions will be related to the foreign trade will be removed from the globalization. So, children, thank you so much for watching and have a nice day and Sai Ram.